What's up, Inklings? How you doing? I'm your host, Alph, and most of my subscribers came from one 4-year-old Splatoon 2 video. An embarrassingly large portion of my channel viewership exists only because of some Splatoon 2 content I made when I was much younger, and today we're bringing the Splat back. I've been playing a lot of Splatoon 3 these days, so today I'm counting down my top 10 Splatoon 3 weapons. Obviously, these are just my personal favorite weapons, as everyone has their own preferences and playstyles. Also, this list is only considering the primary weapon of each build, so if there's another weapon that's only different because of the sub and special, I'm not counting that as different now. Also, I should mention that I'm not the best Splatooner in the world. I don't think I'm bad, but this is just a list of average picks from an average player. Take my rankings as you will, but I reckon if you're a whole lot better than me, you probably don't need someone to tell you about Splatoon 3 weapons in the first place. With all those disclaimers out of the way, let's get started. At number 10, it's the Carbon Roller. For years now, I've wanted to love the Carbon Roller, but even now, it barely squeaked its way onto the list. That's not to say it's bad, though. Its best feature is probably just how fast it is, allowing you to fling globs of paint out at a rapid pace. Wham, 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 everywhere, just non-stop. It gives a pretty average spread of ink, and it can even splat enemies in one hit if you're close enough. Keyword though, close enough. Unfortunately for the Carbon Roller, it has pretty terrible range, and unless you're literally right next to someone, you'll barely scratch an opponent within that range. That's not to say you can't stealthily rush up to someone and splat them or dominate a tight space for a bit, but the Carbon Roller makes me feel too vulnerable to be ranked any higher than number 10. Definitely frantic and fun sometimes though. For number 9, I've picked the Jet Squelcher. Aside from Charger-type weapons, which I'm terrible with, the Jet Squelcher is about as close to a laser as you can get in Splatoon 3. It's just a standard shooter, but with incredible range and great accuracy. When you're using the Jet Squelcher, your shots will hit exactly where you're aimed across a very solid distance. Its fire rate is also pretty solid, making it decently effective in close quarters when necessary. However, the Jet Squelcher doesn't do that much damage, requiring 4 hits to splat an opponent from nothing. This isn't terrible, but it does take away a lot of the Jet Squelcher's long-range potential. The ink you shoot out is often so accurate from a distance that I struggle to stay trained onto a distant, moving opponent long enough to splat them. Granted, this issue might just be my personal lack of skill, but my playstyle is my playstyle. I'm no good with a Charger, and I'm only good enough with the Jet Squelcher to make it number 9. At number 8, we have the Glooga Dualies. Dualie weapons became my jam back when Splatoon 2 came out, and I'm still a big fan of the weapon class. Any set of dualies basically functions like 2 slightly weaker shooter weapons, only now they grant you the ability to dodge roll. Not everyone seems to care about this, but it changes everything for me. My playstyle is usually all about getting close up and personal with my opponents, so being able to quickly dodge in any direction saves my life all the time. I'm a proud dualie enjoyer, and the Glooga Dualies are very nice. They have a really solid range and do a lot of damage compared to other dualies, which is obviously useful. However, this comes at the cost of a lower fire rate, which doesn't quite click with me. Dualies usually work for me as super jumpy, fast, close-up weapons, so the Glooga Dualies' slow firing rate doesn't always feel right. It tries to have the perks of a more mid-range shooter and the dodge roll of a dualie, but I think something got lost in combining the two. Still a good weapon, but not my favorite. For number 7, I picked the Clash Blaster. This is kind of the oddball on my list, so allow me to give some background. Splash damage is a term that refers to the damage from bombs, blasters, or anything that produces an explosion. These explosions dish out damage in a sphere around them without the opponent directly needing to be hit by any sort of direct shot. Personally, I hate splash damage. It makes me so frustrated when these try-hard blaster mains can always kill me from around a corner without actually hitting me, and my wrath is only worsened by the fact that I'm awful with most blasters myself. Enter the Clash Blaster. It has mediocre range and average damage output, but that amazing fire rate is all I need. Maybe I'm totally cheap and spammy, but I don't care. The Clash Blaster finally allows me to become exactly what I hate most, a splash damage dealer. All I have to do is aim in someone's general direction, and they'll take damage and splat eventually. I'm not fantastic with the Clash Blaster or anything, but it gives me a taste of glory. I may be worthless with other blasters and unrelated spammy weapons like the Octobrush or the Bloblobber, but the Clash Blaster lets me be annoying at least a little bit, and that's why I like it. At number 6, it's the Splattershot Pro. This weapon was actually number 1 in my updated top 10 Splatoon 2 weapons, and I still think it's really good. It has a solid range and does enough damage to splat opponents nice and quickly. Its fire rate isn't great, but it's not bad by any means. The ink coverage is decent too, so this is really a good all-around weapon. It fits passably into just about every playstyle, so why is it only number 6 for me now? Honestly, a lot of that is just because I'm not as good at Splatoon as I was when I was 15. It's pretty good from a distance, but I'm really not great with aiming at a moving target from that far away. It is useful for creating a nice buffer of your own ink between yourself and the enemy, which can win certain battles all by itself. Overall, the Splattershot Pro has solid stats in every department. It's not my favorite, but most people are going to do just fine with it. For number 5, I picked the Dually Squelchers. These were obviously created as the Dually counterpart to the Jet Squelcher, and I think the combination worked quite nicely. The Dually Squelchers have very long range compared to other Dualies, but they still maintain a rapid fire rate. But much like the Jet Squelcher, my biggest issue here is that they're almost too ranged and precise. I know that sounds dumb, and it probably just means I'm bad at the game, but the ink coming out of the Dually Squelchers doesn't quite go where I want it to all the time. I'm sure this is just me being used to other weapons, but the ink distribution of the Dually Squelchers doesn't always feel right. The output is so precise that without feeling perfect to me, the Dually Squelchers can only go so far. Still a solid choice though. At number 4, we have the 96 Gal. The .96 Gal? How do you say that? I'm just going with the 96 Gal. The 96 Gal is not a weapon that I would ordinarily consider. It's got an incredible range with a very slow fire rate, and that's just not usually my jam. A solid combination for many, but usually not for me. However, the 96 Gal surprised the heck out of me and became a top 5 weapon in my book when I discovered 2 things. First of all, it has inexplicably decent ink coverage for its slow fire rate. But second, and most importantly, the 96 Gal splats opponents in 2 hits from nothing. Technically in like 1 2/3 hits if that was possible. If you hit anyone twice, or anyone with above 40 damage once, they're toast. This, combined with the insane range of the 96 Gal, allows you to completely dominate an area under the right conditions. And the ink globs it shoots out are so wide that your aim doesn't have to be perfect, you'll just kind of get ink everywhere. As with every weapon, this works better in certain maps or modes, and it's not for every playstyle, but something about this just really works for me. I never saw it coming, but I have a ton of fun with the 96 Gal. Maybe it doesn't deserve to be number 4, but the 96 Gal is great. Entering the top 3, we have the Dark Tetra Dualies. Long-time viewers will remember that these guys took the number 1 spot in my awful original top 10 Splatoon 2 weapons, and I still really love how they feel. Unlike regular Dualies, which allow 2 consecutive dodge rolls, the Dark Tetra Dualies let you dodge 4 times in a row before you stall for a sec. This is a really interesting concept, as 4 little movements allows you to be more jumpy and unpredictable than 2 does. However, the Dark Tetra Dualies' dodge rolls are really more like dodge slides, and don't offer quite the movement distance of a regular roll. The slides also feel a bit less precise, and you stall in place for longer than usual when your rolls are done. This prevents the Dark Tetra Dualies from reaching a truly glorious status, but it's not the end of the world. Aside from their controversial dodges, the Dark Tetra Dualies still provide a rapid-fire, in-your-face dually experience. I think they're really fun, enough to take number 3 on my list. At number 2, it's the Splat Dualies. These bad boys are the original Dualies, and no Dually has ever truly topped them in my current opinion. The Splat Dualies obviously provide the lovely dodge rolling ability, and they also have a great fire rate with acceptable range. Stats-wise, they're an alright weapon, but admittedly they might not be top 2 material for most people. This is a subjective list though, and I love the Splat Dualies so much because of how they feel. For me, these Dualies are so satisfying to wield. The ink goes exactly where I think it will, and that's not always the case with other weapons. The Splat Dualies aren't objectively special, but I'm just so comfortable with them. They feel almost like an extension of my own body when I play. I don't have to think about what my movement options are with them, or consider whether my range is big enough to take out an enemy. Instead of focusing on how I need to use whatever weapon I'm holding, I can focus on what needs to be done in general. I'm so used to the Splat Dualies that there's nothing clumsy or forced when I try to use them. They feel just right, and that's why they're my number 2 Splatoon 3 weapon. This may surprise some of you, but number 1 on my list is the Splat Roller. I know this list was like 80% shooters, but the Splat Roller has managed to outshine them all. This is one of the original Splatoon 1 weapons, and I still love it after all these years. I mentioned earlier that my preferred playstyle is all about getting up close and personal with my opponents, and the Splat Roller absolutely dominates in that department. If someone gets touched directly by the Splat Roller in any capacity, they're instantly splatted. And even within a certain range, the Splat Roller can one-shot people with its flings of ink from a distance. Under the right circumstances, a well-trained Splat Roller user can absolutely dominate an area of the map and splat multiple opponents in rapid succession. It's not the game's only insta-splat weapon by any means, but once again, we come back to that feel. The Splat Roller isn't just an extension of my body, it's an extension of my will. It's probably just a personal thing with how much I've used it, but everything feels just right when I'm playing with the Splat Roller. This weapon feels right at home to me, and I always have a blast jumping all over the map and crushing anyone foolish enough to go near me. Again, there are certain maps and modes where one weapon on this list would switch places with another, but I can't help but love the Splat Roller overall. Without a doubt, the Splat Roller is my favorite Splatoon 3 weapon. Honorable mention, the Rainmaker. I know it's not a traditional weapon, but I always tend to do really well with it, and I think it's a lot of fun. Everyone should let me use the Rainmaker whenever possible, please. Enjoy this Rainmaker footage, and thanks for watching.